Good evening, everyone. We're a couple minutes late tonight. We had a little technical difficulties, but we're going to get up and going here. It's going to be a little different tonight. We're going to have two authors, so we're going to kind of bounce back and forth between them. So we'll see how this goes. I've had two before, but they were usually co-authors. So I'm going to bring them up here one at a time. So we got Mark McWaters. Hi, Mark. And
Hey
we got
guys.
Mike Strickland. Hi, Mike.
Glad to be here.
Okay, so he's a Vulcan. Okay, so he's a Star Trek guy.
I
So
wish I'd thought of that.
yeah, I was gonna say, Mark, do you got any hand signals? Just don't put up the middle finger.
Oh, that's it. That's all I got. Okay.
After your frustrations with the computer earlier, maybe you were probably doing that a little bit. So
No. No, I was trying to solve the problem.
yeah, yeah. Well, computers will do that to us sometimes. Well, welcome both of you. So you two both are with Galaxy Press, right? Or you had works put in Galaxy Press, and I'll go to Mark first.
Technically, I guess so. Yeah. We it was Writers of the Future
Yeah.
that Galaxy Press is kind of like the king of. So yeah, I guess we're both. We're with both. Entered the contest, won the contest, and then boom, here we are.
And it's always nice to have contest winners. So it's always nice to be able to say your book was a winner. Mike, how did that process go for you?
Yeah, I think Mark left out a few steps in between there, but yeah, if you or any of your viewers are unfamiliar with the contest, it's they essentially run the contest in each of the 4 quarters of the year, and every quarter they pick a first, second, and third place. So at the end of the year, they have 12 winners. And those 12 winners, including Mark and myself, are flown out to Hollywood for a week, workshop week, going through all kinds of workshops run by big name authors like Orson Scott Card, Tim Powers, Jody Lanai, Larry Niven was there,
Kevin Anderson.
Kevin G. Anderson. And then the week is capped off by this very glamorous Hollywood black tie awards ceremony and gala. So we really felt like celebrities for a week.
So you had to put on monkey suits, huh?
Yes,
Oh
we
yeah.
I hate monkey suits, so I guess I couldn't go to that award. They might kick me out.
right.
That was the first question I asked. I said, am I going to need a tux? Oh, yes. So, yeah, we went down there. They piled us into a van, took us to a tux rental place, and we got
Yeah.
them. So,
Well, that'd be the only way I would be able to wear one. So, all right. Well, I'm gonna start with Mark. I want you both to kind of give us a little bit of background on yourselves, the important stuffs about you and your life and writing and whatever you want to talk about. So, Mark, I'll let you go first.
okay. Um, yeah, let's see. I'll start with grad school MFA creative writing. I finally got there after I flunked out of pre-med. Um, had to get a degree, got a degree in philosophy, anything to get grad school. Went to grad school, got into the writing program at the University of North Carolina. Came out with my MFA. Knew I was going to write in, become an editor, and be famous. No, I made the rounds, McGraw-Hill, all those places, and they basically said, "Well, yeah, but you have to work your way up. You start selling textbooks out of the trunk of your car." And I said, "Nah, no thanks." Um, After that, I was watching TV with my uncle, and a commercial came on, and he said, "Can you write that?" And I said, "Yeah, a commercial?" He said, "Yeah, commercial." I said, "Yeah, yeah, I think I can write that. I got an MFA, right?" He said, "Well, I got a guy I want you to see," and he took me to the general manager of McCann Erickson, pretty big ad agency. They do Coke, etc. And that was my journey into advertising. So I got into advertising. I've been copywriter, creative director, partner in an ad agency. I did that for like 30 years. The benefit is that I wrote every day, and you have to be a ruthless editor. You have to write to time, which is a really great skill to have. Um, and as the guy McCann said, this is the closest you'll get to Hollywood without having to be there. You can make TV commercials and make a ton of money. So I said, okay, that's for me. And that kept my wheels greased. All the time, though, I wanted to write my own stuff. Clients are awesome sometimes, but I want to write for me. I always did. And I finally said, boy, you better or get off the pot. So I started writing then, found a creative group, critique group, and which, by the way, everybody should do if you want to be a writer. Find a critique group. Um, it'll make you write is the reason, and it'll make you better if you're lucky and you get a good one. So that is about that's the steps um, that got me to here. Um, I won a bunch of awards. I got books on Amazon and all that stuff, but nothing professional and no traditionally published books. That's the hurdle.
It's always a challenge. So before we get to Mike, I already got a comment about what you said, Mark. So I'm going to throw the comment up there. It says you may want to explain when they say they do coke. It could be misinterpreted. So
I love that. Well, they probably do, but they do cola. How about that? Coca-Cola and a
yeah,
bunch of other things. But yeah, and I loved it. I mean, I had a great career. Love that career. But I like making up stuff and being my own worst critic. So, and man, it is awesome. They say I am living my bliss now because I'm writing the stuff I want to write, and there ain't nothing like it. I recommend it.
so Mike, give us a little bit about yourself, your background and stuff. It's a little similar from what I read on your website to what Mark did. So
Yeah, I feel like it does deserve a little explanation of how I can be named a writer of the future at my age when I have more of the past in my life than I have future, most likely. So, really going back to college, when I finally made it to college after a stint in the Navy, I went to film school and in LA. And when I graduated, I gave it my best shot to break into Hollywood as a screenwriter. I wrote several scripts and met other fellow aspiring writers, and we critiqued each other's work. And uh, feel like I did everything I could to break in, and ultimately that didn't pan out. So I um, had to figure out what to do, and kind of went into found a career to focus on, and I just kind of put my creative writing to the side and kind of focused on that. Even though just about every type of job I had involved writing in some fashion, whether it was technical writing or travel writing or online content writing, there was always writing somewhere in the job. Um, and had a family, kind of did that whole career and family path. And really, unlike Mark, who loved his career, I did not love my career. I won't say I hated it, but it was a job, not an adventure, which is the opposite of the Navy.
That's an add-on.
Yeah. So I got to the point about 2 or 3 years ago when I was really experiencing some kind of career corporate burnout, and decided I really need to reconnect with my creative writing. So that's when I decided to go to grad school and get an MFA in creative writing, and I actually ended up ending with just the MA. I decided just the first year was enough. I feel like I got what I needed out of it. But around the same time, I discovered the Writers of the Future contest. And also during this time, I started to write as much as I could. And the last couple of years, I wrote about 30 short stories and got about half of those published. entered this Writers of the Future contest, and after a few attempts, I got picked as a winner, and I finished a novel at the end of the last year that I'm currently querying to literary agents. So I'm on my way.
Yeah, man.
The future is now.
So, Mike, I'll have to ask you a question. I saw this on here. You had a long laundry list of jobs you've done through the years. I mean, you were all over the map. But one of the things, you live in Colorado now, but you mentioned about you lived at a time in a Volkswagen Squareback.
Oh, you
So,
had to go there, did you?
yeah, as I said, I gotta hear a story here about living in a Volkswagen. I mean, I thought maybe it'd be at least be a van, but I mean, a Squareback, you know.
I know, exactly. Well, I did mention that it took me a bit to get to college by way of the Navy, but even before then, I grew up in a beach town in Southern California, Del Mar, if anyone is familiar with it. And so after I graduated high school, I felt like I wasn't quite ready to just keep going to college, and I became a bit of a beach bum for several years. And worked a series of cashier type jobs, and at one point I did move into my VW Squareback for several months. Lived in that. Actually, around the same time I was working the graveyard shift. So what I did is, there's some nights I slept in the car, but other times I would just get off the graveyard shift, go to the beach, throw down a blanket, and have a good nap. So yeah, it was kind of a free spirited period of my life. Put it that
Was
way.
there a surfboard on the roof?
There was not a surfboard. I wasn't a surfer. I was a body surfer, but not a surfer. But otherwise, yeah, the rest of it is a bit of a cliche, I'm sure.
So, Mark, you said something, and again, I'm kind of pulling some stuff from you guys' websites, but you mentioned about hunt and peck typing skill that you have,
God,
and
yeah.
I'm thinking, how have you? Are you one of those that can type really fast but with just two fingers, or?
No. I might use five total. Okay, but I have to look at the keyboard. I wish I could touch type. Just not look and. I took it in school. Dropped out. After I got out of undergrad, I thought I better take typing. Took that, and when the instructor said, there's going to come a time when the boss is going to ask you to come up and take, dictation, and I'm like, what? No, I'm in the wrong class. So no, I have to look at the keyboard, but I'm darn fast. But
Yeah.
yeah, and it's weird. I'm a writer, and I can't type.
So you're not looking at the screen at all. You're just typing away, looking
Yeah,
down.
it's in my head.
Yeah.
I don't need the screen,
Yeah.
but that's how I do it.
That's impressive. All right. So, Mark, we'll come back to you again. We're going to go influences. So, I'm assuming you were a big reader.
Huge.
Obviously, you did copywriting and stuff. So, was this something that when you were a kid you enjoyed to read? And who were some of the people that really influenced you?
Um, I have a memory of being very, very young, like 4, 5, and the girl down the street was a year older than me, and she already was reading, and I couldn't read, and I wanted to read so damn bad, and I remember that. I remember feeling that, um, and I started with the baby stuff, Hardy Boys and that kind of. Graduated to Doc Savage after a while, but um, when I got into serious stuff like sci-fi stuff, it was all the basics: Heinlein, Asimov, Bradbury. I got all those. I sucked up sci-fi like crazy. Then I morphed into other things. Very much like horror. Um, there's a writer called Paul Gallico. He wrote the Poseidon Adventure, I believe, and a couple weird adventure things. I liked him very much. So I would read adventure. The one I didn't read weirdly that I probably should have is westerns. I would have loved Louis L'Amour, but I didn't really read him. Um, then when King came along and Dean Koontz came along, they, you know, they sucked me up, and I very much love them. And I would say that I've read Stephen King's On Writing. I've read that maybe 3, 4 times. Um, yeah, those were my main influences. Um, when I graduated from UCI, Bradbury actually came to the campus. I got to actually meet Ray Bradbury, which was, phew, that was huge. Yeah, that was great. Um, yeah, I Stephen King said something once, wrote something probably. He said he writes what he likes to read, um, and basically that's what I do. If I if I would like to read it, I would write it. But um, that's kind of where I'm at now. Smattering of horror, a little supernatural. I like thrillers, love thrillers. Um, so put it in a blender, and that's what I make.
So what about you, Mike? Where were you when you were a youngster? Were you a big reader as well? And what did you enjoy?
Yeah, probably most writers would probably say the same, that we were early readers in terms of loving to read. That was definitely me. Actually describes my daughter as well. She's a voracious reader, even though she's not a writer, at least not yet. But um, I actually wrote about this in my application essay for grad school, just talking about how I came to have such interest in genre fiction. And it was really the distinct memory I have is from sixth grade, going to the library and looking for something to read. And I came upon this book that was kind of propped up in kind of as a display. And I picked it up. It sounded just interesting, and I read it and just consumed it, and all the books that followed it. And that book was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So I'm sure everyone's familiar with that series. And then that kind of led me almost like a gateway drug into Lord of the Rings and, countless other books in that genre, fantasy. I'm going to forget so many names if I try to list them out, but, a few come to mind, like The Chronicles of Amber by Roger Zelazny, Stainless Steel Rat series, Harry Harrison. Uh, I feel like I should cheat and look.
That's
I'm just
cheating.
thinking, I see a wall of books behind
Yeah,
you there. So
yeah. The Chronicles of Thomas Covenant, Stephen Donaldson. I don't know, just so many. And then at a certain period of time, I somehow got really obsessed with post-apocalyptic fiction. So, like Lucifer's Hammer was one of my favorites there. More recent favorite was The Road by Cormac McCarthy. I have a whole shelf behind me of just nothing but post-apocalyptic. Earth Abides is a much earlier one. Anyway, um, more lately in life, I gravitate more towards kind of like what I would describe as speculative fiction. So kind of like current, real world, present day or near future with kind of speculative elements. Like one of my favorites in the last 10, 15 years is The Time Traveler's Wife, for example. Kind of like more of a contemporary love story, but with a speculative time travel element there. So that's also what I tend to write too. I don't write like super pure genre like epic fantasy or space opera. I'm more like speculative kind of stuff.
Mike, I'll ask you next. Do you remember what an early thing that you wrote, and do you still have it? Maybe as you were a youngster, did you write a lot when you were a youngster, or was it mostly just reading?
Um, the earliest thing that I can recall writing and more importantly completing, which is the key word there, is stage play. Again, picking the typewriter theme back up. I was in typing class in high school, and where everyone else was doing all the typing exercises, I was spending the class period writing a Halloween play and a stage play.
Yeah.
And I ended up that Halloween directing it and acting in it. So that was the first thing I remember. A few years after that, I wrote and published my first short story. Made $20, which was pretty exciting back then. So
Sure.
yeah,
Do you still have that first play that you wrote? Do you have a copy of it somewhere?
I think I do in kind of a file down here in my desk. I think somewhere.
Did you transfer it to digital, or is it just a paper copy?
No, just paper.
The old IBM Select writers or whatever, the electric typewriters. Is that what you learned
Yeah,
on?
something like that.
Yeah. What about you, Mark? What's an early thing that you wrote? Did you write it all when you were a youngster, or did it come later in life?
Well, I know I probably did because of school, right? If you got an assignment, yeah, but that
That's
didn't
being
count.
forced to write, though. That doesn't count. This
Right.
is
Once I
something.
once I realized that I needed to go, I need to get a graduate degree, and I had to enter and do it in creative writing. Well, they want samples, right? If you enter, you try to apply to a college to get into their program, they have to see that you can write. Well, I didn't have any stories, none. And I thought, oh, I got to write some stories. So I wrote some. Um, I got into a few. I got into uh, Alaska, Fairbanks, Alaska. Man, I wanted to go there bad. I got into Oregon, University there, and I got into North Carolina. And I picked North Carolina because they had a famous poet. Um, I wasn't into poetry, but I had to write my thesis for MFA. I had to write a creative work, and so uh, it was called the Juju Stick, and it was set coast of California during the time where there was a building boom. San Francisco, they were taking limestone in to the big ships so they could make cement and all this stuff. And it was a supernatural shaman kind of a dude that walks up with a big walking stick, and it got into some adventures. That was my thesis. I have that probably still. You remember when you actually used to type on thin paper, like onion skin or vellum or that kind of crap, so it didn't take up much room? Yeah, it's in a box somewhere. And if I was to try to put that into digital now, I'd spend all kinds of time working on it, fixing it, and I got other things I want to do. So no, it was a wonderful adventure. And before they let me out with my degree, he said, "You got to swear to me you'll finish this," because it was unfinished. It was probably, I don't know, 6 or 8 or 9 chapters. Yeah, oh yeah, I'll finish it. Yeah, okay. In my head,
Well, that sort of counts, right?
kind of. Yeah.
I've often said in time with technology and everything, one of these days we're just going to have a little data port in the side of our head. We're just going to
Oh
plug
yeah.
in with a USB or FireWire or whatever. And we'll just download all our thoughts and probably AI will write the book for us, right? So
Oh God. Yeah.
hopefully not, right? But
Hopefully not. Yeah.
all
Uh,
right. So before we start talking about some of your books here, I always like to ask this question. I'll go to Mark first. Do you find writing therapeutic? Is it a way for you to cleanse your soul in any way, or what do
no.
you get out of when you're writing?
Um, I it's hard to explain. Maybe I get agitated if I don't write for a while. Like God forbid I go like a week or 2 weeks and don't write. Man, I get kind of bitchy, and I have to do it. It's like I don't know, self-imposed guilt trip, I guess. But I I feel better. I guess it's therapeutic, but I don't look at it that way. It's more like I you know, gotta do it.
Is
And
it just because all those ideas are building
it's
up in your
oh
head
man,
and you got to get them out?
I'm working on like 4 things now, and there's plenty after that. Luckily I've never had writer's block. I don't really even understand that. Um, and knock
Yeah,
on
knock. I say the same thing. I've never
yeah.
really truly had it either, every time you do that, you say that, you go, oh, that'll screw
Yeah,
me up.
I think it's just people that are lazy, you know. You can always write. I mean, one of our instructors said, just write gibberish. Just the act of starting to do that will break through the block, you know. And I never had to worry about that. But yeah,
Yeah, there've been many times where I don't really feel like writing, and I'll go, okay, I got to force myself. I'll sit down, and next thing you know, it's just pouring out of you. So sometimes that's
have you
got to
have
push
you
it.
ever looked back at what you like been surprised when you read something that you wrote back? It's like, oh my God, I wrote that, you know. Uh, it's just I don't understand it, and I don't want to look too hard at it because I like it the way it is, you know. Um, but yeah, I've always wanted to. A quick little itty bitty tiny story. I went back 15 years after I graduated from high school. I went back to that old town. I knocked on the door of my one of my buddies, and the door opened, and his mom answered the door, and she looked at me. This is like 15 years, right? She said, "Mark," she said, "Mark, tell me, did you write your book yet?" And I didn't realize I broadcast that right back then. No, you know. So I told her some, yeah, I'm working on it, you know. But I guess I've always wanted to. Now I am. So
So what about you, Mike? What's writing do for you? Do you find it therapeutic, or what does it do to you when you sit down there and start to type away?
Yeah, the word that would be farthest from my head is therapeutic. Certainly have days when it's full of joy, others full of terror, others filled with anxiety. It's really kind of depends on what I'm writing, what the stage of writing that I'm at for whatever it is, and my mood or any number of other factors. You know, it's just probably every writer has that kind of variability in their days. Some are productive, some are not. Sometimes you got to really pry the words out of your head, and sometimes they just gush out of you. But yeah, therapeutic, I would not use that word. One of my favorite quotes is from a friend of mine, actually, an author friend, if I can recall it. Um, it's something like, contrary to typical childbirth, writing is something that causes much pain in the beginning and ends in orgasm. So kind of like the opposite.
I like that.
That one that really resonated with me, so it's stuck in my head. Um, so yeah, I I I guess I am, in Mark's words, lazy. I don't know, because I have experienced writer's block, but I'm learning to get past it. It is true that the only way through it is to write through it. And like I said, those days where you have to pry the words out of your head, if you do that, eventually things will dislodge, and you'll find the flow, and it really does work. So it's I just have to force myself to do that when needed.
So I'll quickly ask you both this question too. Are you both fairly dedicated? Do you try to write every day? Do you set like a number of words limit for you each day, or is it just pretty much I feel like I want to write, I'm going to write today? Now I'll go with you, Mike.
No, for me, definitely not. There, you'll hear that rallying cry, write every day. If you're a writer, you write every day, and I have to call BS on that. I that just guilt gives people guilt trips, and that's a shortcut to writer's block, is to make a writer feel guilty. I firmly believe that, if you're thinking about the story, if you're thinking about characters, noodling over ideas in your head while you're working out or taking a walk, that all counts as writing in my book. And I could be more dedicated than I am. Uh, it's not like I take, a month or two between writing sessions, nothing like that, but I'm definitely not a daily writer. Yeah.
Got to feel it.
Yeah.
you got that emotion. That's kind of the way I am. I'm not that dedicated, and for me, it's like it's a torrent when I'm ready to get going.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times I'm so exhausted afterwards that it's like, okay, I got to break, stop, and take a little break for a while, and then get my mind in shape. So and stuff. So
Yeah, I will say that uh, it's not that I need to feel it per se, because if you wait till you feel it, then it really will be like 6 months between your writing sessions. So definitely need some kind of discipline there, but it's just for me, it's not every single day kind of thing.
so what about you, Mark?
No, I'm not every single dayer. No way. Um, Probably at least every few days, write. Um, and I write it. I don't write a number of, I don't try to get in so many words. I don't try to get in 3 hours. It's not like that. I write until it feels like it's not good anymore. Like I know when the writing is moving along and it's I think it's working anyway. But then you reach a point where, eh, you know, it's not quite as crisp as it used to be. And so I try, this works for me. I try to leave off where I know where I'm going, so I can pick it up the next day, day after, whatever, and I know what comes next. I at least got that, so I don't finish it all and then I'm dry. So I like to leave some in there cooking away. So when I come back to it, um, I'll have an idea. Um, I'm I'm a the old are you a pantser or a plotter kind of person? I'm a pantser. I think maybe because I'm lazy. I don't know, but I don't like to outline because it takes too long. I want to get to it. Number one, and it's it's almost like, well, then there's I already wrote this. I don't enjoy that. I like being surprised when you go along and you go, oh, and then something happens and it's great. You never would have come to that, or I wouldn't have outlining. So no, no, no. I just write by the seat of my pants.
I will add. I just wanted to add regarding the writing habits, daily habits kind of thing. It for me, it also depends greatly on what I'm doing, what I'm working on at the moment. Like I'm having kind of like long periods currently between stuff because I finished a novel at the end of last year, and then I've been working on some short stories between then and now, while I'm also querying that novel. But while I was writing the novel, I had a daily word count goal. I kind of really got really meticulous about, okay, here's my target word count. Here's I want to finish by the end of the year, and there are X number of days between now and the end of the year. Here's and work all that math out. So here's my daily word count, and I really stuck to that pretty rigorously. I built in weekends off, so it was like 5 writing days a week. But by doing that, having that concrete goal, I was able to write the novel in about 4 months. So that, for me anyway, that worked out. But and then what? Then there are like big gaps between my writing, and often my short story writing comes out in a really frenzied burst of a couple of days versus I don't typically spend months on a short story. I'll have an idea, I'll noodle on it, jot down ideas, but then the actual writing, I tend to just bust those out really fast.
I mostly concentrate on my novels. I use short stories as kind of breaks, because they're easy. You can finish a short story, and it's good. You want to have something finished. So I use them for that. To and sometimes you don't know, right? If you start writing a short story, maybe it'll be a novella. Maybe it'll be, you don't know. And so I just write until like, if it's a novel and I've already got a novel that I'm working on, that's tough because I can't do both at once. But
Yeah, and I've seen you both have written a lot of short stories, and it's a little bit of a lost art. There isn't as many. They're harder to get published a lot of times, and people want long books and stuff. But I think there's a real skill level to be able to write a short story, to be able to
No doubt.
put it down into that small amount and still come up with a compelling storyline, plot line, and so.
Yes.
So let's talk about a few of your books. I got a few copies of books, so you can tell me, and I can throw them up on the screen. I'm going to be covering up some faces in the process, but let's start with Mark. I got like 4 different ones I got off your website. So, any particular ones that you want to talk about a little bit?
Um, yeah. My most ambitious and my favorite. I mean, I like them all, of course, but I like Overcooked. That that was my last and most ambitious novel. Um, and it's not a recipe. It's not a cookbook. It's about people that are stay in the womb 12 months, not 9. So when they're born after 12 months, my theory is they're a little more highly evolved, and so they come out with certain skills. They don't all have the same skills. They do have the same weird bulbous head though, which they all have to kind of disguise. And so my novel Overcooked opens with a guy who he doesn't know he is. I mean, he's been able to know who's at the door before anybody, opens it. Things like that were normal for him. He didn't understand that he was different. Um, he decided he was going to be David Blaine on the streets of downtown Atlanta and do magic on the sidewalks because he could do stuff. His favorite trick was spinning a basketball on his finger, and then he'd take his finger away, and the basketball would stay spinning. Um, so he was doing that on the sidewalks one night in Atlanta. Uh, Crowd got big. Police stopped him to roust him because he didn't have a permit, and somebody yelled from the back of the crowd, "Hey, make the cops disappear!" And another voice says, "I'll show you how to make a cop disappear." And a gunshot goes off, and one of the cops gets shot in the neck. And so my guy didn't know what to do. He fell to his knees beside the stricken cop and clamped a hand on his throat to stop the spurting blood. And when the EMTs finally got there and pulled him off the guy, the EMT says, "I thought you said he was shot in the neck." Well, yeah, there's blood everywhere. He was. He says, "Well, show me the hole." And it was gone. And that's when my guy figured out he had some amazing skill. The problem for him was that in the day of now, with everybody has their iPhones out, they filmed that. That went viral, and people all over found out about it. And so there's a crazy woman who runs a sort of a religious fanatical cult called In His Name, and she saw it and immediately figured he's the devil, and he needs to be taken care of. That's her job. There's the whole society of Overcooked. He's not the only one. But they stay hidden because they know if word got out that they could do things, they'd have a horrible life. People would hound them. So they're supposed to be secret, and he blew that. So they're after him. They're mad at him, and he's on the run, right? And normal people now, he can do that. Well, there's a lot of people that are sick and have cancer and things like that, so they want to be healed. And that's the story, sort of like 3 threads interwoven into a big climactic ending. So I had a blast writing that one.
When did that book come out?
A few years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly. Um, I just had a reviewer uh, podcast that book for me, and we went over it. And she said, "Well, okay, when's the second one coming out?" And I said, She said, "Come on, tell me. Don't you can't leave it like that." And I said, "Well, yeah, I'll probably write the next one, but I didn't plan for it to be a series. I just you know. No,
Mark, there's some serious. Well, I'm just about to make a pun. Serious series potential there, with this premise of these overcooked babies being born with all these powers. That's classic series potential right there. Like all kinds of different people
yeah.
to focus on. Yeah.
And it's, I didn't realize that, I, I just wrote it. I didn't plan it. I was kind of surprised how I ended up myself. I like it very much, and I didn't know what to do at the end. Like, should I end it so it can't be a series? No, I chickened out there. But I haven't written a sequel to it yet. And um, yeah, it's good. And they don't all have the same stuff. They can telepathically communicate. They can do that. But some of them don't have the power, and some are weaker. And my guy is the one. They call him the one, that they've all over generations have been searching for the one. The goal that they all want is not to have to be hidden anymore. They want to just come out and be normal but gifted. And so that'll probably, maybe that's the premise for the second one. Maybe now there's overcooks all over the place.
We got overcooked, and then they'll be undercooked, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah, that's an aborted overcooked. I mean, but yeah.
all right, Mike. How about a book for you? Hopefully, I got a copy here. What would you like to talk about?
Yeah, we kind of talked a bit about Rise of the Future earlier, so why don't you pull up Into the Deep Dark Woods? I am, as I mentioned, I have a novel that I'm kind of trying to find an agent for and do that whole trad publishing route. But so far, I just have short fiction published, and this is the next anthology that's coming out next month that I have a story in.
Cool.
It's edited by Kevin J. Anderson and Alison Longera, both of whom teach in the grad school creative writing program that I went to. But they lead the publishing concentration. So I was in the genre fiction concentration, but there's this whole part of the program that focuses on publishing, and all of the students in that program. One of the things they do during their year is to come up with an anthology theme, and then they put out the call for submissions, go through the whole slush pile process to pick out the stories that they want to accept and publish, send out contracts. They do that whole thing, and then put the book together and have a big book launch at the summer residency, which will be next month. So yeah, I had a story idea that I came up with. The theme is really just kind of the deep, dark woods and kind of mysterious, foreboding, just kind of that feel of not horror per se, although I think some of the stories are horror, but really just kind of darkness. And I had an idea that really, I volunteer in the Denver Aquarium as a scuba diver, and one day, just looking at all the exhibits, these tanks, I just had the idea, well, what if that was all that was left in the world? Like the oceans were dead. There's no more really ecosystems, like both above and below the surface. The planet is dead. All we have left are these exhibits, fake ecosystems, kind of like a zoo, essentially. And so I came up with this story, essentially like a sci-fi murder mystery where mankind now lives in these domed cities because the surface is dead, and there's a theme park that is just all about preserving what's left of ecosystems in these exhibits. And there's a detective who's about to retire, but he gets pulled into one last case to solve this missing person mystery, which turns into a homicide that he has to solve. And I'll kind of leave it at that in terms of not giving away any spoilers, but I like to describe it as Soylent Green meets Silent Running. So kind of like murder mystery with ecological themes to it.
I like it.
I'm not sure what this thing is here with looks like it has two eyes though. That's like I'm looking at that going, that's a little freaky looking, whatever that is. So
Yeah, it's a mystery of the deep dark woods.
yes. So I had one other comment from Joseph. He was talking about your overcooked. I'll throw that up here real quick here.
Yeah. I know. You know, when I came up with that idea, I had to make sure that it wasn't like it couldn't happen, right? But and basically it can't. They never go to term like that. Um,
Well, I don't think any woman wants to carry a kid for
oh, I
12.
know. Well, see, I'm a guy, right? So I'm thinking, in the future, they're all going to want to have overcooked babies because they're special, but that's
I think
fiction.
it's like elephants or something. Is it like 18 months or something like that? It was like a really long time gestation period. But
Yeah.
so let's quickly I'm gonna throw up your Riders of the Future. I'm gonna throw up that, and each of you we'll start with Mike this time. Tell us about your story that's in here that helped you win your award. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, the name is, I almost said Into the Deep Dark Woods. No, the story name is As Long as You Both Shall Live. I described that one as a cyberpunk love story. Essentially, there's a man and woman who are participants in this kind of clinical trial dealing with virtual reality, whereby a person's consciousness can be transferred out of their body and into this essentially like a cyberspace kind of digital environment. And while their physical bodies are operated by AI, essentially, so they're kind of like automatons. So their consciousness, the person's consciousness, meanwhile, is just in cyberspace, just kind of hanging out, doing whatever they want to do while their bodies are being used. And during this experimentation, something happens to the woman without giving anything away, and um, the man has to figure out, kind of navigate corporate secrecy and ethics. As most corporations are risk averse, so they want to disclaim any responsibility for the thing that happened. So he has to navigate all that and find a way for them to stay together. So, yeah.
And Mark, your story.
My story is called Ghost Dog. And I was like looking at the horror, some places that I could send a horror story to, and looking at the regulations and what they wanted. And I was struck by one that said, "Don't give us the same old stuff, Don't give us the witches and the haunted houses, and that's all been done. Give us a fresh." Okay, fine. So my dog sleeps under my desk when I write. He's a little Westie. He sleeps there, and I thought, that's never. How about a haunted dog? That's not been. I don't know that it's been done. And he sort of pushed the envelope for me because one night he woke me up, barking his head off, and it was dark. It was 2:33 in the morning, and he was at the end of my bed, just frozen. His little tail's going berserk, and he's barking. And then I heard a noise in the wall, and like a scratching sort of a noise, and boom, he took off running. Well, I had to get up and see what he was going towards, and that's all true. Um, I embellished the rest of it, however, but that gave me the impetus to write the story. And basically, he his dog is acting a little strange, um, and it he's got toys, like a basket of toys, and they're all of a sudden they're all over the place, and he didn't do it, And basically, there's a town near here called Casadega, which is a spiritualist camp, like from the turn of the century. That's true. And spiritualists, people that read your palm and are mentalists and all that, psychics, they gather there you can go get a reading there. There's experts in this kind of woo-woo stuff. So I took Bentley, it's the name of the dog. I took him up to Casadega and met with a mentalist, and she said, "Oh my gosh, you let me see your phone." And she looks at my iPhone and she goes through the pictures, and she said, "Okay, okay, okay, here." And she's looking at pictures of him, the dog, because I got a million of them. She said, "Tell me what happened here." And I realized, well, I boarded him at a kennel at that time, and she said, "Uh-huh. Well, he came home with something, and it wasn't fleas. And there's an entity that's latched onto him because it wants what he has. You love your dog." I said, "Yeah, I love my dog." He says, "Yeah, it wants that. So basically, it kind of wants you and him." And I had to figure out how to get rid of this thing, how to guard against it coming in and ruining us. And so that was the story. That's the story of Ghost Dog, and it has a pretty good ending, if I do say so. And as I'm typing it, I'm tearing up. So one of the things that we got at that big event where they got the award ceremony, we all were in a big long line, and people bought books, and we had to sign them.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy comes up to me and he says, "Are you a dog lover?" And I said, "Yes, I am." He says, "Well, I sure hope so, because I didn't want to find out that you were just putting that on to write this book, this story." And I said, "No, no." Yeah.
So Joseph had a couple other questions. Well, he's got two more comments, and they're kind of connected together. So, but he was asking to Mike. But he said initially, "What is the name of the story? When does it come out?" And then he followed that up with, for Into the Deep Dark Woods anthology, Mike's story in that one. So,
Yeah, this name of the story is "There's Still Hope While One Tree Grows," kind of hinting at the ecological themes. And it comes out on July 21st. I actually do have some early copies, so if anyone wants to buy a signed copy, they can just go to my website, which is there displayed on the screen there.
okay. All right. So we're at about 57 minutes here. We usually go about an hour. We're going to run a little long, but you said you both were okay if we went long. I figured we would. We're going to have two interviews here. But I always like this question, and I'll ask Mark first. The name of the show is Bringing Life to Characters. I always ask my guests, what's your secret sauce when you're creating those characters to bring them to life, get them to jump off the page? Or any magic formula that you use, Mark, when you're creating those characters?
That is such an awesome question. I don't know. I don't know how secret saucy it is, but I like characters that, just like they say, set your story somewhere unusual or fun or whatever. Well, it's kind of like that with the characters. I like characters that are a little odd, that aren't, like, I can never write a story about a banker, or a teller. I need something different, right? And like the novel I'm writing now, the protagonist is a grave digger. I just like that, and then I do my best to inhabit them. If you're writing, like, you can jump in their skins. You can do that and look around as them, and it's the only way I know to do it. And I like to be inside. I don't like to be like outside. I read a lot of stories that, because I'm in critique groups and stuff, and a lot of it is reportage. They say, and then he did this, and then he said that, and I hate that. You need to live. You need to live in that skin and be the character. That's the best way I can describe it. Um, I love dialogue. Um, you can you can paint a wonderful picture of a character just through dialogue, the way they speak, the words they choose, the things they notice. Right? If they're looking around, some people might see, traffic, and another guy might see a 1923 Bugatti or something and go nuts over that. It's just what they see, what they hear. All of that makes a character, and he's got to. The big thing they always say is he's got to want something. But that's true. So, because that helps you with their arc, and you got to figure out what that is, and you got to make it so that you give a crap about it, because the readers will then too. And you need to understand his motivation and why he wants that, and yeah, that's kind of how I do it. And I like them. I like all of them. I even like the bad guys. I like them. So
Well, and that's you're talking about that, and we'll get to Mike too. But when you're writing short stories, it's a little harder too to get that really bring the fleshing out that character. I would assume because it's that you have less words to less time to get that character to jump off the page.
yeah, that just means you have to be a little smarter with what you reveal. Yeah, you don't have room for long diatribes about the wallpaper design on the wall, but you know what you pick out, what you mention, the way they speak, and what they do. Obviously, yeah, you can do it. You can do it.
So, Mike, what about you? What's your you got any secret sauce? Any good words of wisdom?
Yeah, when it comes to bringing life out of the character, it's really, for me, it's all about emotion. I think the best stories have some kind of emotional core to them. You can write the most detailed, fleshed out space opera or epic fantasy, but if it's about like this dynasty who did this and that and or what have you, it starts to read just like almost like a textbook. If it's missing that emotional core, that's really the heart of the story and the character. So I that's how I feel about what I read as well as what I write. I really need that to be feel engaged when I'm reading a book. And I still don't really know why. I haven't really questioned this so deeply about myself, but almost everything I write ends up having to do with themes of loss and grief and death in some fashion. um, and I think the more I think about that, I think it's just because that's my way of accessing kind of the emotional content of the story. Um, Certainly, there are other emotions besides despair and grief and all that, but for some reason, I gravitate towards those themes. But yeah, really, the emotional content, and in fact, the best of the countless craft books that are out there that I've read, I think, is The Emotional Craft of Fiction by Donald Moss. Highly recommend that one. It really does a great job of talking about this topic.
So, since you both wrote a lot of short stories, did you find it difficult to write a full length novel? Was that more of a challenge for you since you've done so much? And I'll ask the question of Mike first.
Um, Not really. I think it's probably I found it easy because of the way I went about it. I started way back when as a pantser like Mark, and my first novel ended up unfinished at about 60,000 words because I pantsed my way through the whole thing and kind of cruised along writing what I enjoyed writing and where I felt the story needed to go until I came to a dead end. And, you know, if I was more experienced back then, I would have just kept writing, right, and wrote my way out of it. But I just really stalled out and I didn't know where to go from there. Um, so from that point forward, I've become more and more of an outliner and more detailed outlining. So the most recent novel I wrote, I had not one but three outlines, kind of using different outlining frameworks. There's like the hero's journey. There's the Dan Wells's 7-point story structure, I think it's called. And then there's a third one that I used. So kind of different, outlining the story in three different ways, and plotting out all the way down to the individual scenes of the chapters. So probably like the antithesis of what Mark does, probably more detailed than many writers, but through doing that, I knew exactly where the story needed to go at every step along the way. So I just really kind of cruised through it.
So what about you, Mark? Did you find it difficult for short stories and then trying to do it?
No. Well, what you learn quickly, I think, when you're doing a novel is how to put it together. Really, for me, it's scenes, right? And you're just writing scenes. A novel just has a bunch more of them, and scenes are awesome. I mean, love that. But so I thought my first novel was called Gator Man, and I wanted to write a monster book, and so I set it in the Everglades because I'm in Florida, and I set it down there, and I used like Plains Indians. It's the Miccosukee Indians, the Seminoles, the ones that live in Everglades. I used gators like Plains Indians would use the buffalo and the deer. They used them to survive. The shamans of the tribe became the callers. They could summon gators if the tribe needed meat, that kind of thing. So I set that there. I wrote, and I thought, I'll just write scenes, right? It needs a scene that does this, and then I'll come up with, oh yeah, and then there's got to be where so I'd write that, and I wrote a bunch of scenes, and then I had to put them together, which I did, but it wasn't very good. And so I scrapped that and started over and tried to be conscious of flow, of moving from here to here to here instead of discrete scenes, and that worked better. And so I think all of us develop our own way. I don't think there's one way to write a novel. I think there's as many ways as there are writers, and we all arrive at the one that works. And maybe finding that is a journey. Some people are, I'm hard-headed, it'll take me a while, but I think you just kind of, it definitely is scenes. Well then, so what's next? What's next? What's next? How does it end? We had an instructor that came, Nancy Kress. This woman has like 6 Nebulas and 4 Hugo Awards. I mean, this lady can write. And she said, you've got to know the ending. And every cell in my body is rebelling, because I don't want to know the ending. I think that's boring, And so, you sort of, there's so many people have opinions. So many people have done it certain ways. You got to kind of pick and choose. I don't think there's an answer. And
yeah, I would totally echo that. I've written several essays on that topic for my newsletter, where the idea is what Mark said, that there are as many different ways to write as there are writers, and no way is the right way or the wrong way. For me, this has been a total voyage of discovery as a writer. I think I'm probably more structured, more formulaic than a pantser, just possibly because of my screenwriting roots. Screenplays are very structured. The 3-act structure is very important for that format. For really all drama, certainly, is important. So I've kind of really keep finding my way back to that kind of the structure is, for me at least, the biggest tool I have to know how to tell a story and be able to tell a succinct story and hitting all the right story beats without having this like 100,000 words of rambling mess. That's works for me anyway.
I used to think the idea was king, and maybe it still is. And so I was in the beginning of my writing. It was the plotting of the idea was the most important thing, and that's not correct now. And I'm way more into character than I used to be. But for example, like Michael Crichton's Jurassic, right? The idea that you could resurrect dinosaurs, that's the idea. That's, oh my God, what a hell of an idea. So I kind of do that. If I come up with an idea that I think is pretty cool, that's the big haha for me. And then I try to figure out how to write a story about it. It's that, that kind of little kernel thing. And that's all of my books are kind of like that. I come up with an idea. Throughthelight.com is about a website that you go to talk to the dead,
Nice.
so that you can talk it. The business card that a girl gives my protagonist just said, throughthelight.com, talked with loved ones who've passed on. And that was the idea. Like, why not? Why can't you have a website like that? And so that's how I wrote that book. It's that sparks me.
Do you have a little notebook like I have mine here, where I'm always writing little notes down when ideas come to mind? Keep track of all that, or is it all up here?
No, the big ones, I don't forget the big ones.
Yeah.
I used to write them down, but if it's worthy, it sticks with me, I think. Like the only thing I got to decide is is it going to be a shorter work, or is it a novel? Is that a novel idea? Yeah, maybe. And I don't even know until I dig into it, and then it's like, oh shit, it's a novel. So,
Yeah, I didn't used to write down my ideas, and half of them or more surely have been forgotten over the years. So I try to be a little more diligent these days to write them down, and I periodically go through and see if any of them strike my fancy, or maybe a couple of them kind of find their way together like a couple of magnets. But I also use my notebook for ideating those ideas, or kind of brainstorming my way through them. The story I mentioned that comes out next month, that actually I took my notebook with me on an errand, taking my wife and daughter shopping somewhere, and I stayed in the car and I spent half an hour kind of writing down a bunch of ideas based on that premise that I had written down in the book. And actually, just in that short time, I went home and I had my story pretty well fleshed out. So.
lucky man. Good shopping trip.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever, if either of you were Seinfeld fans, but I remember one of the episodes where he woke up in the middle of the night and he had this funny joke. And he's like, oh, this is so great. And he writes it down on a piece of paper, and then goes back to sleep. And he wakes up the next morning and he can't read his own handwriting. He's trying to figure it out. And then he finally figures out what it was. He goes, that's not funny. What idea did I come? Where did that come from? Right. So what he thought was great turned out to be not so great. So,
Yes.
all right. So we're going to wrap up here with a couple quick questions. So and I'll start with Mike, any advice for anyone out there who wants to get into this crazy business of being an author and writing stories?
Yeah, I've thought about that question before, and I have an easy answer: is finish what you write. It's so easy to have this great idea strike you, and you start writing it, and you get halfway through, and you just kind of lose interest, and end up with a pile of unfinished drafts. Just finish what you start. That's the fastest way to success, in my opinion.
So you mentioned you had like 60,000 words in a story that you never finished. Do you still have that? And do you envision that maybe someday you might try to finish it? Or
Interestingly enough, the premise of that unfinished novel, it was really dealt with parallel universes and the many worlds theory. kind of the science of which has found its way into so many stories since 2005 when I started writing this novel, and nobody even had heard much about any of that, with a couple exceptions. Like there was an old movie called Sliding Doors with Gwyneth Paltrow, but it wasn't until many years later that there's suddenly so many stories, whether episodes in a TV series or books, what have you. So now I think that story is passe at this point. In fact, my story was a scientist found a way to access parallel universes where, um, whatever choices you make in life, those decision points kind of spawn a new parallel universe where you did this instead of that and your life changed. But his wife died, and so he was trying to find a way into a parallel universe with it where his wife is still alive. And then all of a sudden, I hear last year I read about this book that's coming out, which pretty much that exact premise. Not so exact that somehow he found my
It was
story,
too long, huh?
but it was close enough that it rendered my unfinished novel like pretty much unpublishable now.
What about you, Mark? What kind of advice do you give to authors, aspiring authors?
Um, well, there's two. It's kind of writing is an exercise. You got to know how to write, I think, and you probably can tell if you can do that stuff. I'm not talking about inventing stories. I'm just talking about putting words on paper, sentences, paragraphs. There's a lot of what we do that is that part, right? You got to have skills there. But if that's as far as writing went, none of us would do it. Um, but you need to be able to do that. That's like the mechanical part of it. Then I you have to kind of get excited about ideas and an idea, and because you got to entertain yourself when you do this, um, because um, maybe the greatest joy you'll get is finishing, which is an awesome thing. You got to finish, um, and you can look back at it and go, "I did that. That's mine. I completed that, and that's awesome." There's almost nothing like that. I mean, the first book I got self-published, I got it self-published, and actually there it was. It was a book. To hold a book with my name on it was kind of a big deal. But you got to know how the craft, the kind of writing part of it, and then you got to come up with interesting, cool stuff. You know, my sort of I, I I have a phrase I use a lot, which is like, "Wouldn't it be neat if?" Right? And like that is how I get ideas. Wouldn't it be neat if, you know, people came out of the womb 12 months later with some abilities, or wouldn't it be neat if you could get DNA from amber and resurrect a dinosaur? You need an idea, you need a cool idea, and then write it. And don't bite off, don't try to eat the mountain first, do a short story. I mean, I would say, don't jump into writing a novel, because it's easy to get discouraged. Because if that whole thing, you better finish it, holds, then a novel's going to commit you to, you may not be able to finish that. Write short stories, have some fun, and get in a writing group. I swear to God, you need to have a writing group because it will force you to write. Not so much that you'll learn, you might too, but it's really good to have people. It takes guts to put your stuff in front of strangers, ask them to read it, and then tell you what they thought. You know, that's, but we've
Getting
got,
those honest impressions from other people sometimes can be
yeah. And they'll tell you things you didn't even know. Like, oh, really? You thought that? But yeah, it's a blast, man. This whole thing is a blast. So,
okay. So we're going to wrap up a little bit, but I was going to ask, Mark, do you have any events you're going to be doing? Anything going on book wise? Going anywhere?
no, I had a great one at Books a Million. a little bit ago. And author services, the people that are behind us that help us with Writers of the Future and Galaxy Press, all that, they actually flew people from California to Florida because it was in Florida in Brandon at a Books a Million, and to help with the book signing thing. And we sold probably a little over 30 books then. And I want to tell this one little tiny story if I can. Um, a little kid came up to the table. I'm sitting there, backed up with all the logos behind me and stacks of books. And he must have been 10. He might have been 12. I can't tell. And he said, he cleared his throat and he said, "Sir, can I shake your hand?" Oh my God. I, I almost lost it. I stood up and I said, "Well, you sure can, sir, and it would be an honor for me, please." And we shook hands. And he said, "Thank you." And he went off. Phew. I didn't care how many books I signed after that. That was good.
It's always nice to get good feedback at events like that. So,
Yeah, they were wonderful. Arthur Services, man, they were out in front with the bookmarks. We have a bunch of bookmarks they gave us, right? And they would stop people and say, "Hey, you want a bookmark? You want a bookmark? You want?" And people will take a bookmark. It's free and it's non-threatening. If you're in a bookstore, by God, you read and you bookmarks. That was brilliant. All of us can take a note there. And so then they would say, "Well, what do you read?" And they get them talking and they'd funnel into me. And they'd say, "Well, he'll finish it for you." And so then, then I had to talk to him. But uh, it was very successful. Very.
what about you, Mike? You have any events you got planned? Anything going on that you're going to?
Yeah, anyone who's in the Denver metro area, I will be selling and signing books at Deep Roots Winery in Golden, Colorado,
Hmm.
this coming Sunday from I think 11 to 3. Um, and I'm actually going to be a panelist at TBR Con. Uh, that's on July 30th, I think, is when my panel is. It's fully virtual online conference, so anyone, easy to attend, and I think it's free. I'll be on a panel. I'm looking at the name of it. The Politics of Utopia versus Dystopia is the panel. So looking forward to that.
It's right up your alley, man.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, great. So we're gonna throw up your websites. I'll put up Mike's is already there on his screen, but we're gonna throw it up here. So Mike, people can go to your website. What can they find on your website? Can they buy books through your website? Do you have a newsletter? Give away anything free? Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much all the usual stuff. Anyone who wants to sign up to my mailing list, it'll generate a email to them with a free short story. And I send out probably 3 or 4 emails a month. Some of them just my musing about writing, some with just more like publication news and just a variety of stuff. I also have my events listed up there, listed my publications, and the books that I have stories in that links to buy them. Yeah.
And then Mark, what about your website?
I'm not nearly as good as Mike. Um, mine is it's clean and it's functional. There's a place to sign up for newsletters, but I don't send any out yet. So yeah, I'm so bad. Um, I've got, you can buy off my website. You can buy my books. There's a books tab and there's a short stories tab, and you can look at them. And I've got a bunch more coming. Um, um, yeah, tell you
And
a
where
little bit
and
about
where are
me.
your books available for both of you? Are they
Amazon.
on Amazon? Are they wide?
They're Amazon mostly.
What
Um,
about you, Mike?
Um, I'm in 3 print anthologies, which are I think available widely. Rise of the Future is definitely as wide as you can get, international. pretty much anywhere you can buy books. The
Amen.
other two are from Wordfire Press, which are also, I think, available on a variety of websites, or also wordfirepress.com as well. That's Kevin G. Anderson's publishing company.
And the anthology that you're both in that we had up earlier, where is that available?
Yeah, that's one I said is
Yeah.
available internationally, really anywhere you buy books. Bookstores, bookshop.org,
Amazon.
just very as wide as you can get. Yep.
But not all signed by all of the writers. Only when they went to the event were they able to get them.
Well, yeah, we did sign some, but
Yeah.
I found out, Mike, by the way, that all those that we signed, there was 400 of the dang things. Books A Million scooped up the most of those.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, I do have copies, author copies, that happy to sell anyone and sign them, personalize them. Just again through my website, you can contact me. I'm happy to send those out. Anyone in the Denver area, I've signed some copies in tattered cover and a couple of the Barnes and Nobles.
The one remaining tattered cover, I think there's only one left these days, I think.
There's actually 4, but yeah.
Is there really? Oh, I thought they had closed several of them. So.
No, Barnes and Noble bought them, so they're not indie anymore, but they're still.
Oh,
still
okay.
going.
That's a great title.
Yeah.
Well, and I go back to the day when they had the multi-storied one in Cherry Creek area there. That was an incredible store. I wish that one was still there. I mean, they had nice little places to sit, and I mean, they did, the golden age of books, way before Amazon.
Yeah.
kind of killed the book industry a little bit, because they kind of took over. But yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, great. Well, thank you, gentlemen. I think unless you've got anything else you want to bring up, Mark, Mike, anything else you need to point out or tell people before we say goodbye?
Follow your bliss. It's a great way to get through life.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Randy, you're awesome, man. Thank you so much for doing this.
Well, I'm glad you were able to connect, Mike or Mark. I mean, we were like, come on, we got to get this going.
Yeah.
We got you on here, and that's great. So I enjoyed talking with you both. And I wish I could go to your signing this weekend, but we're going to be in Deadwood, South Dakota for an author event. So,
All right.
we'll be traveling. So
That's a cool place to be as well. Yeah.
it is.
Rode my motorcycle there. It's Sturgis.
Yes, we always go to Sturgis. Though this time of year, Sturgis is a sleepy little town, but
Yeah,
we enjoy that. Are you a motorcycle rider?
I was. Yeah. Yeah, I had my Harley, laid it down in the freeway.
No, someone did that to me a few years ago on mine. I drive a Spider now. I drive 3-wheelers. I can't really drive the 2-wheelers anymore, but a little bigger. Hopefully they can see me better. So, and our whole family has one. My wife has one. My daughter has one. So
Well, yeah,
we're like we're Spider gang. So
it's so much fun.
yeah.
It's fun.
Oh,
Fun is the goal.
Like riding a bike for me. I used to ride it every day to work. It was a good way to clear my head, and I loved it. So some idiot kind of ruined it for me, but I got back to it. So, yeah. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate you being on the show, and we'll be sending you an email with all the links and everything.
Cool.
But hopefully we'll run into each other somewhere down the road.
Hey, Mike. Good
Yes,
to see you. Good to see you, buddy.
Likewise.
Good to
Love
see
to do some Zoom meetings with us and the other writers. Yeah.
you. Yeah. I want to ask him something while I got him.
Sure.
Okay. One of the things I kept asking our instructors was, how do you get an agent? I heard the most amazing thing, and I want to see, do you agree? Tim Powers told us, well, first get a publisher, get a contract, then you get an agent. And I'm like, what?
If you can do that, that will obviously make it much easier, of course. But that's
Yeah.
that's not any easier than get an agent in the first place.
Yeah.
Well,
I
some
thought that was
publishing
bad
companies
backwards.
won't even look at your work without an agent. They only deal with agents, so it just kind of depends.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are some small presses that will look at and take on unagented authors, and if you can go that route and you actually get a deal or get an offer rather, yeah, then you can get an agent like that easily.
Though maybe, not Donald Moss, but,
Maybe, probably not, but you never know.
okay. See, we could talk all night, so you're going to have to go home now.
Yeah, it's past my bedtime, so yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Good chatting with you. Take care, and
Thank you so
we'll
much.
run into you down the road.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks everyone. We will not be on for a couple weeks since I'll be in Deadwood. I've got Mark Jones coming on June 29th at 6 p.m. But I'll be traveling a lot, and then we'll travel again after that. We got a couple more weeks after that. We're back for like 10 days, and then traveling again. So we'll be a little hit and miss with the shows, but hope you stay tuned. So take care, everyone.